I always thought that family is the most important thing. I was taught from childhood that we should help each other. And I did. When my parents faced debts, I was the first to go to work to help them. When my brother needed money, I gave him the last of my savings. When my sister said she didn't have enough to pay for her treatment, I gave her my entire salary without a second thought. I believe they would have done the same for me. But I was wrong. I was sure that everything I was doing was right. I thought it was okay to sacrifice what I wanted for my family. I watched my friends build their lives, travel, save for a place to live. And me, I paid other people's bills. But back then, I didn't know the worst. They were never going to help me in return. And when I needed help myself, they just turned their backs. I didn't even realize how deeply betrayed I was. And soon I would find out the truth. Another day, another call. "Hi, sis." My brother's voice sounded his usual cheerful self, but I knew immediately why he was calling. I sighed. "Hey, Dan. What's up?" "Look, I'm in a situation." He paused, as if trying to find the words. "I'm out of work again. I'm broke. My rent's on fire. Could you help me out?" I looked at my phone screen, then at my empty wallet. I just paid my parents' utility bills, and yesterday my sister had asked for money for medicine. I couldn't say no. "How much do you need?" "At least $500. I promised to pay you back in a month." I knew he wouldn't, but I transferred it anyway. "Thanks, sis. You're the best." He quickly disconnected without even asking how I was doing. I looked at my balance. There was less than $100 left. Again, I couldn't remember the last time I'd bought something for myself. But I always told myself one thing: they're my family. I can't leave them. I didn't even realize at that moment that they had already abandoned me. It's been a week. I was used to living from paycheck to paycheck, knowing that almost everything would go to help my family. But one accident changed everything. I left the office early and went to the shopping center to buy something on sale. I had to save money on everything, so I was always looking for discounts. As I walked past one of the boutiques, I saw a familiar figure out of the corner of my eye. It was my brother. I slowed down. He was standing at the register, laughing lightheartedly with the clerk and holding out a credit card. I stepped closer. On the table in front of him was a new phone and expensive headphones. I felt a chill go through me. He was saying he didn't have any money. He was asking me for rent money. But instead he was buying gadgets I couldn't afford. I took a step back. In that moment, I wondered for the first time. Maybe he wasn't telling me the truth. Maybe I was just a convenient source of money for him. But I didn't know yet that this was only the first deception. After that incident with my brother, I couldn't get rid of the unpleasant feeling. I remembered how many times he had asked me for money. He said that he was barely hanging on, that he only needed a little help. And then he'd buy expensive things. But the real truth was ahead of me. One evening I got a call from my mom. "Honey, can you help us with the taxes? We don't have any money at all right now." I haven't asked where my remittances go in a long time. I was just used to helping out, but now I couldn't blindly trust anymore. I took a deep breath. "Mom, do you have any savings at all?" She hesitated. "What savings? We've been living on a shoestring for years now." But something in her voice made me wary. I didn't tell her, but the next day I decided to check. I found out through a friend at the bank that my parents had an account they'd never told me about, and there was over $20,000 in it. That money could have helped me, paid my rent, closed my debts, given me some freedom. But instead, they were saving it in secret, and I was led to believe they had nothing. I looked at the bill printout and felt a chill build up inside. I'd been lied to. For years. I always thought I was saving them. Turns out they were just using me. I sat in the cafe, looking at a printout of my parents' bank account. $20,000. They'd been begging me for money all this time, saying they were starving, but they were really saving for themselves. I could feel the anger rising inside. But I needed to know more. I decided to check up on my brother. I went to his social media profile. He didn't usually post anything, but I remembered that his friends often tagged him in stories. I opened one of them. I immediately felt my fists clench. He was sitting in a restaurant, at an expensive table, with a glass of wine in his hand, laughing with his friends. I flicked on. "Bro, congratulations on the new job." "A new job?" But he said he didn't have one. I checked his LinkedIn page. The device date was over a year ago. He'd been working all that time. But he kept asking me for money. I was his financial cushion that he just used as long as it suited him. I put the phone down on the table and closed my eyes. Brother. My parents. They'd all lied. They'd all betrayed me. But the worst part one didn't know yet. My sister was even worse. I could still convince myself that my parents were just saving for their old age and my brother was taking advantage of me out of stupidity. But what I'd learned about my sister had shattered the last vestiges of trust. I remembered her crying on the phone a few months ago, saying she didn't have enough money for treatment. She was saying that she needed surgery right away, or there could be serious consequences. I didn't even think about myself. I took out a loan, transferred to her the amount I didn't have enough to live on myself. I thought I was helping someone who really needed it, but now I happened to see what that money was used for. At the weekend, I went to the shopping center, and just as I was about to leave, I saw her in the window of a car showroom. She was standing next to a new car. She was laughing, taking pictures for social media. I stopped dead in my tracks. New car. But hadn't she been crying a couple of months ago, saying she didn't have money for treatment? I went outside and dialed her number. Hi, she answered unsuspecting. How are you? My voice was icy. I'm fine. I'm working a little, trying to pull myself together after everything that happened. And how's your treatment? There was silence. She clearly wasn't expecting a question like that. Oh, it's fine. I found a cheaper doctor. You did? Yeah. Then tell me, why did you just buy a new car? Silence. I could hear her breathing. She realized I'd exposed her. It's not what you think, Dash. Her voice changed, became strained. You lied to me, I said, feeling my insides boil. Look, You stole money from me. You used me. I was going to give it back. Don't you dare lie to me. She sighed. So what are you going to do? Those words hit me the hardest. She didn't even feel guilty. She didn't care about me. I hung up the phone and stood staring into the void. They all lied to me. My brother. My parents. My sister. They were never going to help me. I was just a wallet to them. But that was ending now. I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I gathered them all together at my parents' house. Brother, sister, mother, father all sitting around the table unsuspecting. I stood in front of them, holding printouts of bank statements, social media screenshots, and proof that they'd been lying to me all along. We need to talk, I said coldly. They looked at each other. Is something wrong? Mum smiled, pretending not to understand what was going on. I spread the papers in front of them. These are your bills. There was a pause. This is your savings, even though you said you had nothing. This is Dan's work statement, saying he's unemployed but he's been getting a year's salary. And this, I turned to my sister, is proof of your car purchase with the money I borrowed thinking it would go towards your treatment. Dead silence. I saw their faces change. First shock, then annoyance, and finally indifference. My brother spoke first. Look, you're over-dramatizing. Dramatizing. I laughed, even though it wasn't funny. You've been using me for years, scamming me out of money, and now that I've found out the truth, I'm dramatizing? Mum folded her arms across her chest. What do you want now? For us to apologize? I looked at her in horror. You don't even feel guilty? Dad sighed heavily. We're family. Isn't it okay to help each other? Help. I felt my insides boiling. Have you ever helped me? Have you ever offered me money when I was in a bad place? Silence. My sister rolled her eyes. Come on, you've always had more money than us. I clenched my fists. That's because I worked 12 hours a day. My brother sighed and leaned back in his chair. Well, if it's so hard for you to help your family, why did you do it in the first place? Those words pierced me the hardest. I thought they appreciated my sacrifices. They didn't care. I looked at their faces. They weren't going to apologize. They didn't feel guilty. They were just using me while I let them. And that's when I realized the most important thing. I didn't owe them anything anymore. I looked at them. My family. The people I'd spent years denying myself everything for. People who were never going to give me back, even a fraction of what I'd done for them. I took a deep breath. I'm not going to support you anymore. Mum frowned. What are you talking about? I looked up at them. It's all over. My brother grinned. Are you serious? Yes. There was silence. They didn't understand. You can't do this to us, Mum said, crossing her arms across her chest. We're family. Family? I laughed bitterly. You use me like an ATM machine and you call that family? My sister rolled her eyes. Oh, drama again. I looked right at her. You stole my money. Come on, it's just. I took out a loan because I thought you were sick. She shrugged. Well, don't take it so personally. My hands clenched into fists. You were never going to pay me back, were you? Mum turned away. We thought you'd understand. No. I understood one thing. I went up. I was convenient for you. While I was paying for you, you said I was a good daughter, a good sister. I looked at their faces. But that's over now. They were silent. Not another cent. My brother frowned. What? Are you going to give up on us altogether now? I looked at him calmly. No. It was you who gave up on me when you decided I wasn't worth anything to you without my money. I turned and walked towards the exit. My sister followed me in annoyance. You'll be sorry. I stopped at the door. No, you'll regret it. And I walked out. At that moment I realized that I no longer owed anyone. I walked down the street, breathing deeply. My chest felt heavy, but not from the pain. It was the realization. I'd just severed ties with the people I'd lived my whole life for. But the truth was, those ties hadn't existed for a long time. They only needed me as a source of money. I pulled out my phone and opened a chat room with my family. Rereading old messages, I realized that all the conversations boiled down to the same thing. Can you help me with money? I'm in trouble. Can you help me out? You know we're counting on you. Not a single. How are you? Not a single. Are you doing okay? I clicked on the delete chat button. Then I went into settings and blocked their numbers. I took a deep breath. No calls. No requests. No manipulation. I am no longer their bank account. I no longer had to sacrifice myself for them. I'm gone. But they had no idea how soon they would regret it. It's been a week. I waited. I knew they'd try to contact me, to try to pity me again or play on my guilt. But the phone was silent. They didn't even try to get me back. I sat in my flat, for the first time in a long time not counting the pennies until the next payday. I hadn't wired money to my brother. I hadn't paid my parents' bills. I hadn't bought my sister the right medication. I spent my money on myself. I bought proper food, not cheap pasta. I paid for a little self-development course I've been wanting to take for ages. I joined a gym. I looked at my bank statement. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel ashamed of spending money on myself. I thought I'd be hurt, that I would regret my decision. But I've never felt so at ease. I looked at myself in the mirror. You don't owe anyone anything anymore, I said out loud. And for the first time, I believed those words. It's been a fortnight. The phone was silent. I started to get used to a life without constant requests, debts, and manipulations. But one night, I got a text. From my brother. Hey, sorry I haven't texted in a while. I really need your help. Everything's gone wrong. Please call me. I stared at the screen. I'd been out of his life for exactly 14 days. And in that time, he was already in trouble. I decided not to reply. But a few minutes later, another message came in. I've been sacked. I don't have any money for rent. If you don't help me, I'll be evicted. I sighed. Didn't he understand anything? I didn't answer. A few more minutes passed. The phone vibrated again. Please, I know what I did was wrong. But you won't leave me, will you? I stared at the message and felt a surprising clarity. Before, I would have immediately run to save him. But now I knew the truth. I don't have to solve other people's problems. I closed the phone and put it away in my bag. Let him deal with the consequences of his decisions. Another week went by. I didn't answer my brother's messages anymore. I knew that sooner or later he would try to find another way to pressure me. And that moment came. Late one night, I got a call. This time from my mother. I stared at the screen, inwardly knowing what she would say. But I answered anyway. Hello, Mum. You finally picked up. Her voice was strained. What's wrong? She sighed heavily. You know Dan's in trouble? I pressed my lips together. Yeah, I do. So why didn't you help him? He's your brother. I inhaled slowly. Because he's a grown man, and he has to deal with his own problems. There was silence. You've changed, she said finally. I just don't let you take advantage of me anymore. It's not fair. Her voice became cold. We're your family. I smiled, but without warmth. Really? Then where were you when I needed help? We did the best we could. I shook my head. No. You did whatever was convenient for you. Mum stopped talking. And then she said what I expected her to say. It's hard for us, too. Dad's not feeling well, and there's no money for treatment. That's it. Another attempt to squeeze everything out of me. But now I knew how it worked. I sighed. I hope you have that money you've been hiding from me. Mum didn't answer. I continued, because I'm not going to help you anymore. You can't just leave us like this. Abandon us? I grinned. I'm not abandoning you. I'm just finally choosing myself. You're going to regret this, she hissed. I shook my head. No, Mum. You will. And I hung up. After talking to my mother, I expected to be pestered with calls and messages again. But there was silence. No one tried to contact me. I knew why. Now that I was no longer giving them money, they were looking for someone else to save them. But apparently there was no one as handy as me. 2 weeks later, I overheard from a mutual acquaintance that my brother had moved into a small room in the suburbs because he could no longer afford the expensive rent. I saw on social media that my sister had sold her new car. My parents no longer went to expensive restaurants or planned trips like they used to. Now they had to live the way I had lived all those years of giving them the last of my money. But one thing surprised me the most. They never once tried to get in touch with me again. They never tried to apologize. They didn't admit their guilt. To them, I simply ceased to exist. And that proved the most important thing to me. I was never important to them. They only wanted what I could give them. But that was over now. I didn't feel resentment anymore. I just looked at their lives without my help and knew they got exactly what they deserved. I sat in my favorite cafe, sipping hot coffee and watching people passing by. For the first time in a long time, I had no anxiety. I wasn't waiting for another call asking for money. I wasn't thinking about how to please my family. I was just living. No debt. No other people's problems. No guilt. I looked at my bank account. There was more money in it than I'd had in the last 5 years. I was no longer giving it to people who didn't appreciate me or my efforts. Now they were working for me. I invested it in my future. I rented a new flat in a better neighborhood. I enrolled in a course I'd been putting off for a long time. I started traveling. And most importantly, I didn't feel lonely anymore. Because loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't appreciate you. And now I was finally free. I looked at my reflection in the window. Before, I saw a tired, exhausted girl who gave her last to people who wouldn't appreciate her. Now I saw a strong woman who had finally chosen herself. I smiled. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at ease.